This is Amanda Edwards, and I'd like to welcome you to the Edwards Empowerment Talks. This podcast provides a platform to empower individuals and the community by showcasing stories of resilient people who have refused to let life's challenges prevent them from achieving their dreams. The Edwards Empowerment Talks will also highlight the work being done in the community that will help to positively shift the trajectory of this nation. Through stories of adversity, perseverance, drive, struggle, and success, the podcast will empower others to believe in their dreams and pursue those dreams despite whatever challenges may come their way. It is also a vehicle to equip the community with the tools necessary to be the change they want to see. I welcome you to tune in. You don't want to miss this. Well, welcome back to the latest episode of the Edwards Empowerment Talks. I am excited to have our next guest, Mr. Jonathan Sprinkles, here with us today to share a little bit more about his journey as a motivational speaker, author, and of course, as the founder of the Connection Lab. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining me as my guest today.
Man, it is my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're excited that you're here, and of course, think that people can learn many lessons from you, not just in terms of the motivational speeches that you've given, but also in terms of your own personal journey. And so before we talk about your speaking and your books and all of those things, I'd like to learn a little bit more about your background and what you envisioned for yourself growing up and where you grew up.
Oh, well, first, let me tell my Amanda story. Can I do that? Before I tell my story, can I tell your story?
You're out of turn, Jonathan, but go ahead. Go ahead.
So I didn't know Amanda until she was running for city council. And then I saw all these pictures around my neighborhood. And I said, wow, this young person is looks like she's really something serious. And it wasn't until the day I voted. And believe it or not, I did not know a thing about your platform. I knew nothing about whether you were even qualified. Fortunately, you were and highly qualified, but I voted for you just because of your amazing banners that you had up everywhere. So I said, you know what, I'm with her. And you may or may not even remember this. Right after I voted, I walked outside and you were out there passing out flyers saying, vote for me. And I was like, oh my God, that's her. I just voted for you.
And I remember being outside of West Gray voting location. And so that's like the hot spot in town for voting, in case people don't know what I'm referring to in Houston. But I do remember that. I appreciate your support and I apologize. It was so funny. It's like people would say, oh, I've seen you before. I'm like, yes, I'm sorry. We'll take it down as soon as the election is over. We'll take all of that down. We promise. So anyway, but I appreciate that story, and it's certainly a good, interesting way sometimes that you bump into people.
Yes. So being on this podcast is a very, very big honor. So thank you. This is really cool. So about me. So I grew up in Los Angeles, California.
Okay.
My story getting here is very interesting. That'll come in a second. My parents divorced when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I lived with my mom and my two sisters in a one-bedroom apartment above my grandmother in South Central Los Angeles. This is important. My mom, she had her hands full because when my parents divorced, not only did they lose the marriage, they had also lost the business as well. So my mother, she didn't have any income. She was trying to raise these children and she was trying to figure some things out. Well, my sisters were off at school. My mom took me and my little 5-year-old self down to the Los Angeles County Social Services Office. That's a dressed up name for welfare. Okay. And to just advance the story a little bit, she got to the end of the line and started asking her questions. And she said, you know what? No, thank you. Keep your money. I'm going to figure it out myself. Sounds great, but we were still poor. So we ended up working some things out. My mom got her teaching certificate. She became a teacher, but still really wasn't able to create enough income to support us. And I was also there in the house with 3 other women, and it was me, and I was very impressionable. My father said, you know what, I want him to come with me. My father and I lived together for the next 8 years or so. We became best
Now,
friends,
where
soulmates, I
was your
call.
dad at this
My
time?
father was also in Los Angeles. We
Okay.
moved around a lot, though. I moved around about 7 different times before age 13. We were always in different places. My father was trying to get on his feet. Finally, we moved to a little town called Oxnard, California, which is where the Oakland Raiders used to play in the summer. And that's where I established my first roots. But I say it's important because my mother eventually moved out of Los Angeles to get her master's degree and pursue some education administration. And that's what led her to Austin so that she could get her PhD at the University of Texas at Austin. My father, at the same time, ended up developing cancer. And unfortunately, he passed away. And that's why I moved from Los Angeles or the LA area to Austin, Texas. And that's how I grew dual citizenship. And that was the next few years of my life. I went to UT Austin, worked for Dell, and then I left Dell on a fateful day and decided to stop chasing my paycheck and start chasing my purpose. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
Okay, so you sped through that. So I'm gonna back us up just a little bit. And you talked about losing your dad. I too lost my father when I was a teenager. I was 17 years old, and I remember the impact that it had on me in
Mm-hmm.
terms of A, that he had been ill, and then B, in terms of when he passed away, how it really, I think, for people when they're growing up and they lose a parent, they often have to mature a lot faster. How old were you when you lost your dad, and what was that experience like? How did that change your focus, if at all? And then, of course, what did you think your focus was going to be?
So I was 15. I was a freshman in high school. And my focus, I thought I was going to rap.
You did
I
not think
thought
you
I was
were
going to
going to
be a
rap.
rapper.
I don't believe
Whoa,
you.
whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What do you mean? I did not. I had bars.
So is this going to
I
be your
started two.
freestyle moment? Is this
I
going to be a
started two
moment for you?
different rap groups.
No,
Oh,
you
we
didn't.
were,
What were their
yeah.
names? How did I not know this?
I don't. This came out. That wasn't planned. I normally don't tell people this. I even had a rap group in college too. See, we were going. This was going to be big too. Y'all don't know about this stuff.
Okay,
I mean,
wait. So go back to the
okay.
high school group. So who was the name of the high school group? You're not gonna tell me the
And
name?
the so the group was called the 411 because we were given the information.
Okay.
And my name was Professor J. And
Okay,
I
Professor
still
J.
remember some of the lyrics. I shan't not share them with you, but I still remember some of the lyrics. And I
Okay.
knew it was, I just knew it. I knew I was going to rap. I knew it.
Okay. And so, but no demos to anybody. You didn't sneak it
No,
in any any recording studios, nothing like that.
no, no.
Okay.
The world missed out. Let me tell you.
Okay. Okay. So
Now, there are some hidden recordings somewhere, but again, I shan't not
they're
reveal
on
this to
they're
you.
they're on cassette tape.
Yeah, absolutely. There was no such thing as anything else.
So okay, so you thought you were gonna be a rapper? Is that basically what you thought, or
Well,
you thought maybe you'd do that on the side and then what else?
I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, I think all young boys, especially a lot of young men of color, think we're going to either play a sport or we're going to rap, because at the time that's all that was available to us. Really and truly, the only black men who were on television were athletes, entertainers, and Tavis Smiley. That's all I saw. I think there was Larry Brown, Tony Brown's Journal. My mom would watch him on PBS. So there was Tony Brown's Journal, and he was really amazing. But those were the only black men who I saw who really seemed to have, quote, made it. So I
Okay.
wanted to make it. But the real interesting thing, Amanda, and maybe you can identify with this, maybe you can't. I went to a predominantly white school, but I was the black kid who was from California, who was still trying to figure this out, who I was. And I just didn't want to be different anymore. I got so tired of being different. I was too black for the white kids, too white for the black kids. And I was just always so different. So I invested a lot of time in trying to conform. I invested a lot of time in trying to be acceptable to other people. So that's actually where I learned some of the skills that have created my career today because I learned how to connect with people. I learned how to meet people where they are. I learned how to read people and understand what does it for them and listen very well to figure out who I could trust and what words symbolized meaning and value to people. So ironically, although I thought that this was something that was a curse, it was actually a big blessing because it's honed my skills and helped me to be good at what I do.
So let me ask this. So you, at the time, you wanted to, you wanted to rap, but you also learned the skills
Don't
that were
say it like that.
necessary.
Look, hey, say it with some authority like it was going to happen.
But you wanted to learn the skill. You were learning skills that were necessary to help you to really connect with people. But what did you want to be? Who did you want to be as an adult?
So I always knew I was different. I just knew I didn't want to be different, but I always just knew. I'll give you an example. I remember in one class we were supposed to write a 4 paragraph paper on Hercules from Greek mythology, and my 4 paragraphs turned into 4 pages because I just got lost in this story that I created about Hercules. So I always knew that I wanted to do something that was creative and something in which I could travel and be my own boss. I knew that that was it, but I had really no idea what to do with it. I had no idea what these raw elements could become. So I thought I was going to be like an engineer or some kind of politician or something. If when you go back and look at what you predict your life was going to look like, I was all over the place.
Yeah. And so you get to Texas. You moved to Texas. Was it culture shock coming from California or not so much?
Very much. I came here with LA gears. You remember those
Yes,
shoes,
I
some
do.
Cavaricis. I had the silk shirts. I had the high top. I was, for California, I was right. In Texas, they hadn't quite caught up to that yet. So
They had
everybody was looking at
there
me
were
like,
high tops in Texas.
yeah, but not like
Not at
mine
that
though.
time
It was a little
anymore.
different.
Not anymore. so so you get to the University of Texas. When you got there, or did you finish high school in Texas?
Yeah, I did 1 semester of middle school here, and then I
Okay.
did all of high school
Okay.
in Austin, Texas, and then I went
Okay.
to UT Austin.
Got it. And so in Austin, were you also the odd man out, or did you feel like you found your comfort zone in terms of high school? What was that experience like for you?
Austin was weird. Austin was really
That's
weird
what it's
because I
supposed
was
to
used.
be.
Well, I didn't know that at the time.
Okay.
I came from Los Angeles, which is, depending on the year, number 1 or number 2 biggest city in America. I was used to a very multicultural environment, and Texas was just very segregated. And I remember hanging out with some of my white friends, and one of my black friends pulled me over and said, "What are you doing? We don't do that here." And I said, "Do what?" He said, "No, we don't talk to them." And it was my first experience dealing with that kind of segregation. Now,
Mm-hmm.
we had issues among the races, especially among Black and the Latinx population, but I hadn't experienced Black and white racism, and definitely not to that extent when it was self-imposed until I came to Texas.
Okay. And then you stayed in Texas and went to UT. Tell us, how did you, because when you were in undergrad, you were extremely active, student leader. Tell us about how, were you a student leader in high school and then you just transitioned into the same, or was that a jump or a leap?
Well, I was, once again, always very different. I always had these ideas, and I was not one to wait for someone else to do it. If it didn't exist, I wanted to build it myself.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, that was a clue. I believe that the greatest skills that every entrepreneur has were the skills that they either got in trouble for as a kid, or those skills that may have been the thing that made them not fit in their peer group. Usually the things that make you fit in, those aren't the things that make you a good entrepreneur. Those are things that make you good at a job.
What are
So I was,
things that make a good entrepreneur? Sorry to interrupt, but I'm curious to hear
sure,
your
great
thought
question.
about that.
Well, being a great entrepreneur, usually you see things that don't exist yet.
Mm-hmm.
You're usually very you're a dreamer. You live in the future, which is
Mm-hmm.
why a lot of entrepreneurs are so crazy, because we're always believing in something that hasn't happened yet, and that can be a challenge sometimes, because you're almost never satisfied. You're always saying this is good, but it could have been better. If you don't if you stay up late, a lot of times that's a trait of an entrepreneur. If you have a lot of ideas but don't always know what to do with them,
Mm-hmm.
you're an entrepreneur. If you are always thinking, that would be a great way to make money, somebody ought to blank, that means you are an entrepreneur. And by the way, I did a great job at my job for 2.5 years. I was one of the top reps. I was one of the top employees. Everything was great. So I always tell people, if you have a job, be great at that. Be the best you that you can be. Don't look down at people who have a job versus people who are entrepreneurs, because that guaranteed check is also pretty nice as well. But also understand that sometimes, if in your DNA you experience that, what I call divine discontent, if you have the job and know that there's just something greater, something different, something more grandiose for you, that it's not just that you can't work for anybody, but you just know that there's an impact that you have been designed to make on this planet. That's how you know you're an entrepreneur. Otherwise, you should just rock out at your job, get the check, get great stock options, keep moving up, and you can have a great life that way.
Mm-hmm. Now, I interrupted you because I was curious what you thought might make a good entrepreneur, but you were sharing your story about how you transitioned at UT into becoming this leader. And so please go back and share that as well.
Sure. I admire your focus. You are good. I I was a leader. I started my own organization. It was the first chapter in the state of Texas, called Student African American Brotherhood. It
Okay.
was a Greek and non-Greek organization, because I was very, very tired and heartbroken by all of the divisions. We'd have the Kappas fighting the Alphas, fighting the football players, fighting the Omegas. And I just got real
All
tired of
that
it. I
was
said,
going
what,
on at UT?
please? So I was very disappointed and dismayed by all of that. So I said, what can we do to unify? And right after a really big fight on campus, we had something called the Black Male Retreat.
Okay.
And that's when I said, let's go for it. And we pulled together a few key leaders on campus, and we created this organization. And believe it or not, it's still in place. And they meet every Thursday at 7 o'clock in the Malcolm X Lounge in Jester West at UT Austin.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. So you got a chance to organize and what came of that and what made you say this leadership thing, I think that's what it's about for me.
I, the fact that I was a dreamer and I could see things, and the fact that I was charismatic and always trying to bring somebody along. I to this day, one of the things I really want to do differently, I wish I could shake it, but I just don't think that's who I am. If I get something, I want to help somebody else get the same thing. I
Mm-hmm.
want to help somebody else. Sometimes even before I get it myself, I just say, hey, come with me. Let's go get it together. So I would assemble people, and we would create our own events. We did service projects and all
Mm-hmm.
kinds of great things. We did a 3-on-3 basketball tournament for women,
Okay.
benefiting the battered women's shelter. We just kind of just did good things in the community. So that kind of thing always excited me,
Mm-hmm.
building things that didn't exist that would serve other people.
And so you were at UT, finished up, and then you ended up in a job in corporate America. Tell us a little bit about that transition. Did you feel like you were living your life or somebody else's? And then, of course, what prompted you to make the leap from I'm going to leave my job and then become a motivational speaker of all things?
I, at UT Austin, started recruiting on behalf of the College of Business. They knew that I was a leader, and they said, hey, will you come with us when we go to places? This was before 9/11, so we could get on the airplane with almost 5 minutes notice, just get to the airport and go. So I would get to the airport, go to cities like Houston and San Antonio and Dallas, and I would speak on behalf of the college with the dean. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time on a Saturday morning, a man said, hey, how old are you? What year are you? I said, I'm a junior, sir. And he said, well, when you graduate, here's my card. Give me a call. You've got a job. That was kind of my first clue to let me know I might be good at this. Maybe. But the thing about it, Amanda, I had debilitating stage fright. My hands would literally shake like I was arthritic. I was so
Really?
scared. I was terrified.
So were you always somebody who had stage fright, or did it just get worse over
Always.
time, or did
Oh, always. Always.
improve it?
I stuttered and I had
Really?
stage fright. Absolutely. Yeah, I had to speak what was not as though it were until it was. I would every day say, I am articulate. I say what I mean and I mean what I say. I'm articulate. I say what I mean and I mean what I say. And that was the mirror work that I did. We'll come back to some of that because I'm in that same place right now, which is why you see this background
Yeah.
right now. So we'll get to that in a minute. But it was at that moment that I decided that I wanted to speak to other kids who were in similar situations as I was. I needed at the time someone who could see something in me that I didn't see in myself. I needed someone who inspired me, someone who made me believe that my future could be bright, someone who reminded me of what I wanted to be. And I said, I want to be that for someone in the future. So I would, at Dell, I didn't know what I wanted to do for a living, but Dell was the only company that would hire me at the time when I was at
Mm-hmm.
school. So I did know that I wanted to travel, that I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be my own boss, and that
Okay.
I wanted to help people. That
Okay.
was it. That's all I knew. Dell was the only company that would hire me. I
Yeah.
interviewed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They said no. I interviewed with a few other places. They said not yet. And Dell said, let's go right now. And
Mm-hmm.
it was cool because I was in a fast growing company and I was badge number 29026. I had a cubicle. I
You
was making
remember
money.
that?
Absolutely. It's in my
Okay.
heart forever. Uh, I, I remember it because it was just such a part of my consciousness because I felt overwhelmed. I didn't know a thing about computers, Amanda. I didn't know anything about technology. I didn't know anything about what I was selling. So every
Mm.
single day, I got in my blue 1993 Toyota Corolla. I called it the Blue Bentley, and I'd put a tape in of people who, once again, would remind me of what I wanted to be in the future. People like Brian Tracy and Zig Ziglar, and and um, and just various motivational speakers who would inspire me on my drive up Mopac to Dell. And I would apply some of the things that I learned from the tapes, and it would help me to sell better. And I said the same thing. Even before I got it, I was trying to bring somebody else along. I said, Amanda, if I'm good, if I could take this and make money with it, I wonder if I can make my own tapes one day. I
Mm-hmm.
wonder if I can make my own book. Nah, nah, I don't even have anything to say. Mm-mm. I'll just keep listening and I'll keep working. And then eventually, I prayed about it because I did very well and people started hiring me from out of state. And I prayed and said, God, when do you want me to go? This was in April of 2002. Remember,
So
September
you
11th,
said,
it just happened.
and you wait a
All right.
minute. You said people were trying to hire you from out of state. Explain what you mean by that.
Oh, people were hiring me to speak to kids.
So you were already doing that. So
I was
how did
doing
you
it part
start?
time.
Okay, so you started doing it part time.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
how did
Part
you
time.
even start doing that part time?
Uh,
You're skipping that part of the story. I'm
okay.
not gonna let you
I
get away
talked,
with that.
you're focused. I was talking to kids on weekends. They had
Okay.
events like FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America, and various, say no to drugs programs and different things. I would
Yeah.
talk at a backyard barbecue if they would let me, Amanda. I
Okay.
would go anywhere.
So you
And
knew that that's what you really wanted to do. You just had to figure out how to make that a full time opportunity.
I didn't think that I could.
Okay.
I knew it would be cool if I could do it. I knew it would be cool if I was smart enough to do it, but I didn't think that I could do it
You
because
didn't have
I
the
counted.
expertise, life
I was too,
expertise.
I was too young, didn't have a JD like Amanda Edwards. I didn't think I was old enough, smart enough. I thought I was a black man that no one would want to pay me, and all of those self-imposed barriers. I had them all, and I
Mm-hmm.
had to battle through all of that just to get someone to hire me. So I remember, I'll take you back. It was Southwestern Black Student Leadership Conference at
Okay.
Texas A&M University. I remember to this day. It was in January. I don't don't even remember the year, but I bet if I thought about it, I could probably pinpoint the year. Probably, anyway, I just got out of college and I did a free workshop. And the Delta Sigma Theta sorority, was from Baylor University. They were in my audience, and they shook my hand. Oh, Mr. Sprinkles, you were so great. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then they brought their advisor in, Miss Pearl, and I remember her. And they had already talked to her, and they brought her in. She said, I don't know who you are, but my girls have been talking about you ever since the end of your session. I said, okay, well, cool. Thank you so much. God bless you. Great. She said, hey, we're doing a tribute to the Black man in February. How much do you charge? And I remember going,
You're like, how much do I charge?
yeah, I was like, I can charge for this? Wait. I literally looked over my shoulder. I thought maybe she was talking to somebody else. And I said, it's okay if you don't have it. It's okay.
So you
$50? How about $50?
$50.
They said sold. And I did it for $50. They wrote me a check for $75, and I could have flown home on a cloud. I was so happy.
Oh, wow. And so that was your foray into kind of part-time public speaking, and you were connecting with people about things that you knew about. So you didn't have to have any extra degrees or be older. You were talking about the things that connected with the communities that you were going out to speak at.
But let me tell you a cautionary tale, Amanda, about self-sabotage.
Okay,
because
I'm ready.
For all of the reasons that I mentioned, I stayed at that level. I would only talk to kids because I was 22, 23 years old, and I thought those would be the only ones who would listen.
I see.
Now, I had aspirations of talking to adults, but I didn't think they would listen. So my self-imposed barrier prevented me from ever aspiring to do anything more.
How did you know that was that barrier that you were imposing on yourself? How did you know that was self-imposed or artificial, and that you really could do what you thought you could not?
I just got too old.
You said I'm getting too old for this.
I was, Amanda. You know, at some point
you weren't speaking at Chuck E. Cheese now, were you?
But at some point you don't want to be that creepy old guy on campus. You just don't. You just don't. There's nothing cool in that. I don't care how much they're paying you. You just need to just go on. Just go on. Okay. So that was what did it for me. I just decided that I needed to move forward, just take that risk. And honestly, I had a lot of people who were mentors for me, people who believed in me before I believed in myself. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell my story without talking about this laundry list of people. I call them my angels because I never would have stepped out if they weren't there to make me believe that I could do it. And they would literally pull me by my collar and say, Jonathan, come on now, you're too darn good to be staying at this level. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's what it takes. The journey of every entrepreneur is extreme confidence mixed and molded with self-doubt.
Say that one more time.
The journey of every entrepreneur is extreme self-confidence mixed with self-doubt.
And so what makes a successful entrepreneur? One that allows their confidence to overcome their self-doubt, or one that understands that sometimes self-doubt is healthy and they should pay attention depending on the level?
I don't know if self-doubt is healthy, but I would say this. I believe that entrepreneurs are people who simply say these 4 words, maybe 5. I'll do it anyway. 4 words. I'll do it anyway. I just believe that when you are truly an entrepreneur is just someone who serves people and gets paid for it. That's all. It doesn't mean you have to have an MBA and know how to read a profit and loss statement. All it means is that you just like to serve people and you don't mind receiving compensation for your service. That's it. Yeah. But I believe that the people who truly are entrepreneurs, you just know. You just say, you know what, I'll do it anyway. Even a bad day at this is better than a good day in a place that I'm not supposed to be.
Got it. And so having a sense of place and having a sense of mission and purpose also fuels good entrepreneurs as well.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
let's go back to the transition from you speaking part time, speaking to kids part time, to actually becoming a full time motivational speaker. How did that leap occur?
I was full time since May of 2002.
You
That's when I
finished
prayed
school
that prayer.
when? When did you
Uh,
finish
I,
school?
I finished in 99,
Okay.
1999, last century.
Don't
Yeah.
age
So
yourself. Don't age yourself.
it's all good. Do the math. So I finished in 99, and it was in '02 that I left. And that was the time in which the nation was trying to rebuild, similar to where we are now. Because of 9/11, we were in the middle of a recession, and it was the worst time you could possibly leave. But I did. I had saved up enough money thanks to something that my brother told me. He said, whatever you do, save $500 a month of your salary. And I thought, come on, dude, you know how much I could buy with $500? And I had lived with my mom for 6 months out of school, and I kept my same car for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that gave me a level of stewardship that afforded me the opportunity to have enough of a nest egg that kept me and allowed me to make the investments in my business, like buying a website, buying check it out, fax machine, and
Oh,
some of
come
the other
on.
things.
You're dating yourself all day today.
This is my truth. So I had to, get those things that I needed in order to make my business happen. And it was because of that I was able to survive.
Mm-hmm. And so you just decided, you said you prayed about it and then you just told your boss, I'm out of here? Or did you have enough engagements lined up where you were like, this looks right. Let me step out now.
Well, I thought that, yes, I quit when I quit when I ran out of vacation days. Honestly, I couldn't even leave. If I was sick, then I would just get fired. So I finally said, okay, I'm out of vacation days. It's like April. Okay, let me put in my 2 weeks notice. And then it was finally May when I left. But yeah, I was gone a lot because I started to get hot. And once again, I was talking to kids. But what happens in May? They're out of school. They
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah.
And so my timing was horrible, but I was young. I didn't care. I spent my days by the pool. I was hanging out with my buddy. So I felt like that was entrepreneur life.
And so you get out there, you're hanging out at the pool, and the speaking engagements slow down. So how did you pivot? What did you do in order to propel yourself forward?
Again, these are my angels, Amanda. They were my angels. I was finding it really hard to get anyone to even pick up the phone just to say hello because they were all trying to finish up with school. But I
So
had a
you were
friend.
calling them. Tell us
Oh
what
my
you were
God. Yeah,
doing. So you would
I
call
was
them and say,
outbounding.
"Hey, I'm Jonathan Sprinkles, and I'm a public speaker. Would you like me to come and talk to you about X or Y or Z?"
I was doing that. Yes, I was outbounding because that's what I was, a salesman, right? So
And
I
were
was
you
used to being
saying,
on the
"Well, didn't
phone.
you pay me to come too?" If they're
Yes, I
not
had
even,
no problem at that point because I needed to eat, and
I
it
love
wasn't
it.
$50 anymore.
So let me make sure I understand. So you pick up the phone, you call somebody, and you say, "I know you've got a graduation coming up, and I know you're looking for a speaker. I'm your guy." And then after they say, "Well, actually," they take a look at some of your speeches from the past, and they say, "Actually, we kind of like what you have to say. You are our guy." And then you just say, "And here is my invoice."
Well, Amanda, there weren't even speeches from the past at this point. Like think back to where we were. There was no internet. I mean, I guess there was, but there
There
was
was
like no.
internet. Come on now.
Okay. There was internet, but you weren't able to put videos on
Right.
websites.
You
There was
didn't
no
have
YouTube.
YouTube and
So
yeah.
it was all game. You had to be able to just talk that talk, right? You had to have that GAME. And so I was able to use those skills that I had developed from my job and from Toastmasters after work on Tuesdays that I was able to just say, hey, this is who I am and I can make this happen and this is what I'm going to do for your kids and I'm young just like your kids and I can offer da 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 da. This
Okay.
is one of the key lessons for every person in business. You have to understand this. Every business person is a PPS, a professional problem solver.
Mm.
That's it. you're a professional problem solver. So I would invest time. I got a great piece of advice from one of my colleagues. He said, when you're not working, meaning when you're not on stage, go do what they're paying you to do, meaning go volunteer and talk to these kids so that you can work on your formula. Go get really good at that part of it. Go get really good at developing your stories and connecting with people. So just always be working. That's why I always have kept a really good work ethic ever since.
Mm-hmm. And so were there any, I mean, being a motivational speaker also, you don't just run around meeting other motivational speakers and seeing them and having this network of just a bunch of motivational speakers camps and conferences. So tell me a little bit about where you found support, where when you had trouble, tell me about one of the troubling times you may have had, and did you have to ever pivot? Kind of share a little bit about what that journey, because from the outside looking in, it seems like, oh wow, just go up, get up on the stage, make a speech, and get paid, and then go to the next one. And it seems like the stress is not as intense, but I think you may have shared with me that story may not necessarily be the case.
No, it's always very stressful, and that's part of the being a business owner. It's feast and famine, right? Some days
Mm-hmm.
you're making all this money. I remember calling my buddy who I grew up with, and I said, "Man, I'm chasing down $20,000 right now. I have $20,000 in contracts that they owe me." And then other times you would go weeks or even a month or more without making any money,
Yeah.
right? Or sometimes it was, you just never know. You just
Mm-hmm.
never know. I'm so blessed that my career took off and I got pretty high pretty
Mm-hmm.
quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't making a whole lot per engagement, but I was still able to stay busy.
Mm-hmm.
Graduations, and the word got around Austin, Texas. I did some very well-known programs, so my name was associated with them. And then I had a friend from college who was working with the youth program, Trio.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked me, said, "Look, I don't have any money, but can you just do this graduation for us?" And there was like nobody there. It was raining, so even the kids didn't show up. But there was a small crowd, and I gave them my everything. You would think there was 1,000 people in the audience. And it just so happened that the head of the program was there, and they hired me to speak at 6 of their schools
Oh
later on
wow.
in the fall. That was the only reason why I survived, because of that contract. I think it was honestly $2,000 per school, and that $12,000 was more than I had like ever made. But that $12,000 allowed me to pay rent, allowed me to eat, put gas in my Toyota Corolla, and keep going.
And so what did you ever think about quitting or giving up when you were
Sure,
at some of the low points? What was
sure.
your lowest point?
I picked up the phone and I was going to call to ask for my job back,
Oh
but
wow. So
some.
this was like almost immediately after you left your
Oh
job?
yeah, yeah. That
Okay.
buyer's
That
remorse.
summertime where
I,
you were sitting at the pool.
I told you, yes. I told you. Yeah, right when I came in and said, "Okay, that was cool, but I'm still broke. What's going on?" And I decided at that moment. I told you it's extreme confidence mixed with self doubt. Can
Mm-hmm.
I really do it? Am I enough? I recently learned that all fear comes from rejection
Mm-hmm.
and unworthiness.
Mm.
And I didn't want to be rejected, and I felt unworthy of it. And so I was full of fear, but I just kept on going. And there's a phrase that I use. I even have a T-shirt line that people have supported. It's called betting on myself, and that
Okay.
is my slogan. I'm betting on myself. Sometimes it works out the way I want to. Sometimes it doesn't. But from as early as I can remember, Amanda, that's who I've been. I've always said I want to do it my way.
Mm-hmm.
Since I've matured a bit, I now have evolved that statement to say I want to do it God's way. And I
Mm.
believe that when I do it, when I'm led by God and I do it led by the Spirit, not by my own ego, that I can't fail.
Mm-hmm. And talk a little bit about ego. I think there is a healthy amount of ego, and then there's an unhealthy amount of
Mm-hmm.
ego in terms of decision making and entrepreneurship and just forging your own path. Can you highlight what your view is on what is a healthy amount of ego in this type of journey?
Yeah, well, some people don't like that term ego, and I believe the ego can be a good thing, um, but anything gone too far can be a bad thing. You have to have an ego to start your own podcast and put your name on it. You have to have an ego to run for city council and say, I'm a better candidate than the other person. You have to have an ego to start your own business. You have to have an ego to do all the things that allow you to receive compensation. Because what you're saying is, it's better for you to give me money than to give the other person money. That requires some level of not only self image or self concept, but also requires a level of self efficacy.
Mm-hmm.
And you wrap those up, that becomes ego. Now, when you have an overestimation of who you are and become prideful, that's when that ego gets in the way. When you say, when ego without effort, or I always say ego without effort equals entitlement,
Mm.
that's when it becomes a problem. But
Mm-hmm.
if you say, look, I'm going to work and I'm going to work harder and I'm going to do a better job than everybody, so you should choose me, that's a healthy ego. That's a
Yeah.
healthy amount, good self image. When you say, look, just choose me because I'm me, that's when you run into problems.
And so, talk a little bit about problems that you've run into, and then how you got out of them. Did you pivot? I know you've turned into an author as well. When speaking was slow, did you think about writing? Tell me a little bit about the balance between the two in terms of that journey.
So that's a lot of, there's a lot of history behind that. My life has been a lot of ups and downs. Even when in public, it seems though everything is great. I've
Mm-hmm.
had to deal with a lot of things behind the scenes because it's just tough. It's being on Entrepreneur Island is very tough.
Mm-hmm.
Doing things that haven't existed yet, it's very tough. We all have things that we deal with, some level of unworthiness that we feel that we have. We all have doubts and levels of insecurity. We all deal with it. Even people who teach on it, like me, we all have to contend with that little demon within, the critic within. We all do. But that's actually why I'm here now, why you see what you see here. I'm sitting down on the fence outside in my new practice, just sitting down and reconnecting with the earth. I'm sitting down what they would cross leg, as kids say, crisscross applesauce, and I'm just reconnecting with the earth. This is where you're able to find your truth, and this is where your money is. This is where your joy is. This is where your passion is. This is where your best ideas are, right here in that space. And so when I get stuck, whether it's in business or in life, and I feel like I'm just disconnected, I'll come to a place like this, and this is where you get unstuck,
Mm-hmm.
because I believe that the answers are within, and it takes a lot of maturity to come through that. And you have to try everything else, right? I like what Solange say. I tried to, but it just stayed with me. Well, the reason why is because it's right here. So I put on some comfortable clothes and I go sit at the gate, put my behind on the grass, and some of the best ideas come from this space right here. So I'm actually welcoming you and your group, all your tribe, into a very sacred moment here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you sharing kind of the way you are finding a means of centering yourself. I'm sure there are a lot of people, especially after we've had such a doozy of a year. 2020 has been a doozy for so many people in different ways. Um, how have you navigated through 2020, and what does 2021 mean for you? And then share a little bit about Connection Lab.
So the Connection Lab really took off in 2020 because I realized that people needed to connect with themselves, their purpose, connect with their teams virtually, many of them for the first time. And so that really became the problem that I wanted to solve. Although my business took a dive initially, it was
Mm-hmm.
very tough because I was on stages, but then when the events were canceled, my contracts were canceled. So, Amanda, just to be very transparent, I lost five figures in 5 days. In the
Wow.
first 5 days
You were
of
kind of hemorrhaging.
the pandemic. Boy, it was tough. But I create. I
Yeah.
thank God for the gift that He's given me, because I will always look for a need, a problem to solve, or someone to help. And then I'll figure out how I can get someone to, once I solve their problem, how can I get someone to compensate me for that?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so the Connection Lab really took off. I started working with companies who were saying, hey, we need to learn how to create more connection virtually. I created a master virtual presenter certification.
Mm-hmm.
I created a quiz even that would help you to develop the right mindset so that you can come back. So I even created a quiz so that other people can work their way out. And it's at jsprinkles.com/comeback. So it's just 12 questions in which you answer about your mindset and about whether you have the mindset that's going to allow you to make a comeback this year. And it will tell you whether you have it, and if not, what you need to do in order to get it based on where you are. I've created all this stuff, all in the middle of the pandemic. So it's been a blessing. I wouldn't have signed up for it, didn't want it. I had all the tears, all the sadness, the loneliness, the am I going to make it? Mm-hmm. But I truly do believe that oftentimes in our darkest hour, that our brightest ideas are birthed.
We just have to be open to that and
you have to be open.
And also know that you can do it.
Yeah.
Well, that's an incredible story, and I hope motivation to others in terms of if they're finding themselves in a difficult spot because of the pandemic, challenges with their business or challenges you're facing in a variety of ways, seeking out the light and in you becoming your answer, I think is part of the way we have to go about navigating this. And so I know that we're running short on time, Jonathan. If people are looking to find more about what you're doing, what you've been up to, more information, I know you're on social. I know you've got a website. You want to share that with the audience as to where they can find Jonathan Sprinkles.
Absolutely. Well, look, with a name like Jonathan Sprinkles, I'm not too hard to find.
Do people ask you if that's your real name?
Every day. And I have the same answer. Do you think I would do this to myself?
Well, it sticks. It sticks.
Yeah, well, it works now. It's not cool when you're in fourth grade, but it's
well, very good. So on social, you're on all platforms?
Yeah, just find Jonathan Sprinkles. But I'm really big into helping people and helping them to get this quiz. It's helping so many people and helping because I give you a diagnostic and say, okay, this is where you are and this is what you can do in order to flip the switch and get reconnected with that part of you that's going to go get it. If you just do these things, then it can change everything and you will be unrecognizable this year.
Oh, wow. Look, you getting me excited about this tool. I have to check it out myself. So thank you so much, Jonathan, for allowing us into your sacred space today, which is the outdoors, but also for sharing your personal journey and your insight to help to empower other people. That wraps up our episode of the Edwards Empowerment Talks, and I look forward to you joining us next time.
I would like to extend a special thank you to the Texas Signal for its support of our podcast.